are the heartbeat of the Caribbean, where the music never stops. New era, TT Radio, Nett Radio.
Well, if you talk to anybody today, that is one thing everybody wants: more money, plenty money, big money. However we get it, we are taking it. So this is where we welcome you inside Every Cent Counts right here on your era TT Radio, the heartbeat of the Caribbean. It is a Monday. And whenever it's a Monday, it's a great Monday because Garth Thomas joins us in between here. So, Mr. Thomas, a great Monday morning to you.
And a great Monday morning to you, Sir Charles. And to all our listeners out there in New Era TT Radio land. Great land to be a part of, Sir Charles.
Of course it is. A beautiful land to be a part of. And we are happy to have you as always. How was your week? Well, we weren't here last week because of the holiday and everything.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
so...
Well, that was Independence.
Right. Yeah.
And now we are heading toward Republic Day. And we are also heading toward Budget Day.
Not necessarily in that order.
Well, who knows? The three things are interrelated. Actually, if you go back one holiday more before, then you get Emancipation Day. It's quite a combination: emancipation, independence, republic, budget.
It's very instructive the way that the holidays have been falling. It's
telling you,
it's not just a kind of willy-nilly thing, and I didn't really pay much so much about the emancipation, but I looked at how our independence and how our Republic Day falls in that space there.
Yes.
Two holidays that really deals with the as I said, the soul of the nation, our nationalities, our history, and there's so much in between there. So I think it's very strategic. We are very fortunate to have those two holidays falling the way that it is.
Well, I think that the emancipation, or as Dr. David Mohammed puts it, liberation. I think that liberation and emancipation preface the independence and the republic, and I think it is a good preface, and I think that people should give that sequence a lot of thought. But I also find it very instructive that following upon the republic, upon this trilogy,
Okay, I seem to have lost you a little bit. I don't tell me his internet is giving trouble this morning. Yeah, I think he's a little frozen on the internet. So I have to give it a few minutes to see how it settles in, and if he will be able to fall back or fall in again. Oh, it's well frozen. Okay, yeah, you fell all the way out. Yeah, well, this is what it happens every now and then where you are using the internet. And just today we were talking about that whole situation about internet. For those of you who would remember when we started talking this morning, we were talking about the internet and internet speeds and how most of the time you are not getting, yeah, most of the times you are not getting the
My computer
internet.
just shut down all of a sudden.
Oh, okay. Oh, the computer shut down.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. The screen just went blank, but it's come back up. So I'm back on board.
Wow.
I say, boy,
I
but
thought
I
I thought
didn't
the
say
internet had
anything.
probably dropped out in you.
Possibly, because it was very abrupt, you know, and there wasn't anything I could do. I was now scrambling to try and get it restarted, but everything came back up pretty much on its own, thankfully. Right, so I was talking about how I'm reflecting on. I was saying, boy, I wonder if I was saying anything that somebody don't want to hear.
I don't know how good they are. I don't know if they're that good because you already start to say it yet.
Well, like I was heading in a particular direction because I was talking about how emancipation or liberation, the prefaces the independence and then the republic, and then I was saying it's interesting that those three holidays lead up to something which is not a holiday, which is budget day, you know, and budget day is ahead of us now that these other three are behind us. But everything, as you quite rightly say, to me, everything is leading in a particular direction. But coming back to our program, Sir Charles, well, I don't think we really left it, but you would know that for the year I have been treating with the issue of context. Context for individual personal financial planning, which the theme of our program, Every Cent Counts, speaks directly to that. But of course, we've broadened that theme and we've looked at the fact that every cent that counts doesn't just speak to our finances, it speaks as well to our involvement, the critical nature of every single Trinbagonian being involved in the process of moving our nation forward. So we've had a lot of conversations about a strategy for national development into the future. I have talked a lot about 2050. And I have expressed the desire for, at the national level, for those in charge to identify a 2050 objective. And you see, as the budget day is coming up now, that context becomes even more critical because the budget day is speaking to what is going to happen over the next year at a national level. Yes? But how does what happens over the next year at a national level fit into a broader plan for moving the nation forward over the next couple of decades? All right? Because we are 25 now. We are 2025 to 2.5 decades will take us to 2050. So Charles, today I wanted to make it a little more personal and to try and tie in that broader context because, you know, I'm a strong believer that communication, like life, is a big picture to small detail sequence. You always start with the big picture and then you move from the big picture to the finer details. That provides for excellent communication because people can see the picture. If you do paint a good picture, then people understand what is going to happen, what we want to happen at the end of the day. And then tie the individual activity, the strategy, and so on. You tie that back to that big picture so that there is context. And context is that which provides meaning. I have said that before, I'll say it again, because too often I listen to conversations at the national level and we get down into the nitty-gritty of crime, violence, domestic violence, climate change, all kinds of things. All very relevant issues. But for us to appreciate these issues properly, we need to have the bigger picture. Yes? And therefore, I always say, the universe, we start with the universe and they come back to you. That is the sequence, Charles. You don't start with you and you go to the universe. You start with the universe and you come back to you. So today, in fulfillment of that perspective, I felt I should talk about a budget. Not the national budget, but our personal budgets as we strive to make our way forward. Because in the same way that the nation as a whole needs to have a long-term perspective, need to decide where they want to be in 20, 25 years, where we want to be, I should say. In the same way, each of us individually should be plotting for the future, should have some clear long-term objectives. And then you come back from the long-term objectives and you break it down into steps so that at the end of the exercise, you should know what is the first step that you must take toward achieving your longer-term goal. So let's talk a bit about a budget and what a budget is and what a budget isn't. All right? Now, a budget is really a management tool. Now, we tend to limit budgets to management of money. That is understandable. It is perhaps its primary application. But budgeting goes beyond just money. As a matter of fact, for the money budget, for the finance budget to really work, it has to be couched within a broader budget for our development as individuals. In the same way that we want to have our development as a nation, then the two things are linked: individual and family development, community development. All of these things tie into national development, and there should be some cohesion in the whole thing. So it isn't that we have resources that are going willy-nilly, helter-skelter all over the place, trying to achieve various objectives where there's no cohesion, where there's no integration, where there's no synergy. These are critical things. So it is important to understand that a budget is a management tool, and that tool is to assist in the deploying of resources that are available in order to reach a predetermined objective or goal. All right? So I'm talking about a budget in context of finance, but I'm also talking about the budget in the context of resources, your overall resources as a human being, and how you can identify these resources and mobilize these resources to achieve a given vision, a given objective. Now, the scripture says that without a vision, the people perish.
Yes.
That underlines and underscores and highlights, whichever you prefer, all right, my statement about the long-term plan, about the long-term objective for the nation. So the principle, whether it is at a national level, at a community level, at a company level, at a community level, or a family level, or at an individual level, the principle doesn't change. The principle covers the whole gamut, because principle, that's the nature of principles. A principle is an energy flow, and it is universal. It is time test. It is immutable and unchanging, and therefore a very reliable basis upon which to plan and to strategize. So I always say that in order to do a budget, there's some activity that is required prior to the development of the budget. So now that I've outlined what a budget is, that it is a management tool, and that is a management tool not just for finances, but it's a management tool for resources available. Now remember, Sir Charles, that I have presented my template for wealth creation, and the template starts with the finish line and the starting line. And we say that the finish line is where the planning process begins. The starting line is where implementation begins. But the starting line is also the question of identifying and quantifying the resources that are available for use and for mobilization. And we have identified that those resources can be put into two broad categories. One of those categories are tangible resources, which is the thing we tend to pay most attention to mistakenly. And then the other category is intangible resources. And that is the category we pay least attention to, but we should be paying most attention to. Because whether they are tangible or intangible, they are all resources. And actually, there's a relationship. There's a required relationship between the tangible and the intangible. And our focus, Charles, is what gives energy to anything. Eh? So our focus, when our focus is primarily on the tangible, then we technically wasting energy, because the tangible is really a slowed down version of the energy that exists in the intangible. Energy produces matter. Albert Einstein identified that very clearly, all right, when he said that what we call matter is really energy whose vibration has been so slowed down to be perceptible to the senses. So the real powerhouse is energy. And I always hasten to say, Sir Charles, that when we talk about energy, we're not talking about oil and gas. Unfortunately, in Trinidad and Tobago, when you say energy, we talk about oil and gas. And we don't listen to David Rudder when he talks about the energy of the people. All right? And Sir Charles, the energy of the people is of greater import than the energy of oil and gas. But in Trinidad, we don't believe that. Our actions does not speak to that. The way we operate, it sounds like oil and gas is where it's at. And that the energy of the people running a distant second to that. You know, it's not even what you call it, a thing finish. What's the term you use for
a photo finish?
A photo finish. It's not even a photo finish with somebody winning by a nose or something like that. All right? It's a distant second. The energy of the people is a distant second. In my view, I could be wrong. So I'm saying that one of the critical activities that is required in preparing a budget for yourself and your family, so I'm speaking to people personally now, all right, one of the essential requirements is having established the finish line first, because the finish line is where you articulate your goals and plans. Yes? Well, not so much the plans, but the goals. The plans are the process. So the finish line is where you identify very specific goals that you want to achieve as an individual or as a family. Right? And I'm not going beyond community. It applies at community and national level as well. But certainly in the personal context that I'm trying to work with this morning, and you realize I'm having some challenges in keeping it personal. All right? But the principle doesn't change. You need to have identified, before you can do a budget intelligently, you have to first identify the specific goals that you want to achieve in the budget period, because remember the budget has a time constraint. In the national context, the time constraint is 1 year, and that 1 year has to be further contextualized in the context of a 5-year plan. You know, since back in Eric Williams' day when we became independent, we were accustomed to a 5-year development plan. So Charles, I cannot recall the last time that I heard anything from the political directorate, regardless whether it's PNM, UNC, whoever they be. I cannot recall the last time that I have heard a 5-year development plan being articulated. Now, maybe I just wasn't listening, Sir Charles. I would always say, I don't hear everything.
Yeah, you can't hear everything.
Huh?
You can't hear everything.
You can't hear everything, but I think like a 5-year development plan should be big news in my book. All right, it should be big news, and I cannot recall. I do not. If the last administration, they had a 5-year developmental plan, okay, because their 5 years finished, and now we have another 5 years starting. And so, Charles, are we going to start again from scratch and have a new 5-year plan, or are we going to have a 5-year even a 5-year plan at all? But let me get back to the personal. I am saying that the pre-requirement for setting up a budget is that you would have identified very specific goals that you want to achieve within the time period set. Whether it is a 1-year period, as in the national budget, or a 5-year period, how it used to be at the national level, or as I have advocated in my master's class, that it should be, give yourself 10 years. So Charles, if the principles enshrined in my wealth creation template are consistently applied on an individual basis, in other words, if you, my listener listening out there, if you wrap your minds around the wealth creation plan, which is 3 simple steps, I've kept it very simple. It's a start line, a finish line, a start line, and a timeline. And it doesn't have to get so complex that you get confused. Very, very simple. A finish line, a start line, and a timeline. And I'm saying that once that exercise of having established the finish line, what are the specific goals and the specific timeline for those goals? Those are pre-budget requirements. Yes? Because if you have not done that, then you're shooting in the dark. All right? You could end up running helter-skelter. What is that nice metaphor that we use, Charles, to describe energy being expended without anything being achieved? We have a nice national, you might call it an old people saying. I think I'm going to have a program, such as about old people saying.
You might very well have to do that.
All right, we're going to talk about that. But we have a saying about spinning top in mud. Yes?
Okay, yes.
Spinning top in mud. And spinning top in mud, I don't know what it means to anybody else. But for me, my interpretation is that you are generating a significant amount of activity, that you are expending a significant amount of energy, but it is taking you nowhere. All right? You're not making any progress. You're spinning top in mud. You're running around in circles technically, expending a lot of energy and effort, but there is no return on your investment. So I'm saying that to avoid spinning top in mud, you need to be strategic. That's what I'm trying to say, Sir Charles. You need to be strategic. And to be strategic, you must identify a long-term goal. All right? A 5-year goal is a mid-term goal. There's validity in it. But you really need at least a 10-year goal. This is individually. I think at a country level, you can't go for 10 years. The country you need to go for at least 2.5 decades. You need to go at least to 2050 or to 2055 to make it 3 decades. All right, if you're going to plan at that level. And I'm saying these things because I'm hoping that the the current directorate and the people responsible for the budget activity will listen to this, because this is not, this is not news. This is well established by organizational research, by all of the pundits and the gurus and so on, that there's a need, especially at a national level, for the identification of some specific goals. So I'm saying, to come back to the whole process here, I'm saying that the pre-budget requirement, the things that must be done before a budget can be put together, is that we must identify the goals and the time frame for those goals. Yes? Because those goals will enable us to do a priority sheet. Okay? Now, say, Charles, whatever budget they present, come the end of the month or whenever it is they do it, I am less interested in the budget than in the priority sheet that informs the budget. Now, if the budget is well done, the priorities will be obvious. They seldom are. I cannot think back, Sir Charles, to a budget speech where at the end of the budget speech, I was very, very clear on the priorities of the government over the next year. And if a budget doesn't do that, to me, it's questionable how efficacious it will be. All right? So I'm saying, coming back to the personal level, I'm saying, okay, you are in a particular situation. You have a year ahead of you. All right? And this is good time, Sir Charles. This year in September is a good time for people to be working on their personal 2026 budget. You shouldn't wait until December or January, because I know that's happening, Sir Charles. The only thing worse than trying to put together a budget for 2026 in January 26 is not putting together a budget at all. All right? Or trying to put a budget sometime down in the middle of the year. No. You need in advance. At corporate, in terms of corporate entities such as, budgeting normally takes place August, September. Right. And it's a good thing that at a national level, we have developed that particular style of presentation of a national budget by the end of September. It is that is really, that's a plus. All right, that's a major plus, because you can't wait until the year is on top of you to begin to plan it, to plan for it. Yes. So I'm saying the priority sheet should inform the allocation of resources. All right. Now, Sir Charles, if you want to examine and evaluate a budget, one of the easiest ways to do it is to go to the finances and look and see how much money has been allocated for what. Okay? Because obviously, those ministries or areas of the economy that are going to receive the greatest financial input, the logical, it wouldn't be an assumption, but the logic that will inform that obviously has to be that this is a priority area, that this, if I'm giving 20 million to education, then it says very loudly, if the budget is 60 million, Sir Charles, what's wrong with me?
Million or billion?
It's billion, is billion. We're not talking billion, we're talking million. If the budget is $60 billion.
The way you're going there, we'll have no deficit.
That's a fact. Maybe that is a subconscious desire.
Yes.
Anyhow, yes. So the point I'm making, though, that whether it's million or billion, if there's a 60 billion budget and 20 billion, which is a third of the budget, is allocated to education, then that says very loudly that the priority, or one of the main priorities, of the government in the coming year is going to be education. Yes? You see how easy that is? And then you look at the percentage that is going to deal with social services, with crime, with climate change, with all of the other areas, health, and all the other areas of the economy of the nation. I am saying to everybody who is listening to me this morning, if when the budget is presented, you get confused with all of the details that are presented and you don't know whether you're going forward or backward or in a circle. If you find yourself in that position, then just look at the allocations. Okay? Look at the financial allocations, and the financial allocations will tell you clearly what the priorities of the government, regardless of what the rest of the budget say or not, the financial allocation will tell you the priority. In the same way, when you do your budget, yes, that budget, the amount of money you allocate for any given purpose, for buying a new house, buying a new car, for educating your children, for personal study, for health and wellness, all of the areas, look and see how much money you have allocated to each of these areas. And that will tell you what your priorities are in terms of the resources that are available to you. The next thing that you want to look at is how much attention is the budget paying to your intangibles vis-a-vis your tangibles. If the budget has a tangible focus, then you know you're missing the mark because you are ignoring the energy. Yes? Is that making sense to Charles? You're ignoring the driving force that will make everything happen. All right? The energy. You need to pay attention to the energy. Which, let me skip a moment, Sir Charles, and say, let me tell you, when the budget has been presented, and I don't know if, I suspect, and I never did it, and I think my family is the poorer for it. We never had a family budget. We never had a meeting every year, and it should have been my responsibility to say, hey, we have to have a meeting, on a given day, and it should have been in August whilst the children on holidays. We should have had an allocation of a day when we examine our budget, our family budget for the following year. Yes? So in the current context, here I'm saying to all the families who are listening to the program this morning, if it is not a practice, make it a practice. Start with this year. August done already. We're in the middle of September already. Before the end of this month, have a family meeting relative to the establishment of a family budget for 2026. Let me tell you, you will not regret it. It may be a stormy meeting. People might cuss and carry on dependent upon the culture of the family and so on. But it is a necessary meeting if the family is going to move forward. If you're going to talk about intergenerational wealth, those meetings are crucial. But Sir Charles, let me skip forward again and say that in the consciousness of our people, a budget is not something that they eagerly anticipate. Okay? Because the connotations that we have, the associations in our minds about budgeting, because of the fact that most of us operating from very limited financial resources, we tend to take a position where we avoid having to confront the realities that a budget will present us. It's almost as if we ignore it. If we ignore it, it will go away. There is that tendency amongst us. All right? Now, if the cap fit, you know what to do. But this computer is still trying to give trouble here. All right. Yes. So I'm saying that, we must change our perception of a budgeting exercise to a more powerful, to a more positive, to a more inspiring and motivational mode and context. than it presently is. Because a lot of people will tell you, I mean, I have been giving people advice, financial advice for years. A lot of people would avoid doing a budget because they say they don't have enough money anyway. No, listen to the craziness of that. All right. You're so aware that you have insufficient tangible and financial resources to do all the things that you want to do, that you decide, where's the sense of budgeting? Well, that is what makes budgeting more important to you. Listen to me, Sir Charles. If there is surplus, there is a need for budgeting. And if there is deficit, there's a need for budgeting. And I'm not too sure which one requires more. Because the absence of a budget, if you are in surplus, if your family have enough income coming in that you could more than take care of all of your normal expenses, that is a surplus kind of, in economics, they call it a surplus spending unit. If your family is a surplus spending unit where there's excess cash, hey, the need for budgeting is critical. And the same is true that if your family is in a situation where they're in a deficit situation, such as if you have a lot of debts, you are in a deficit situation, because the only reason why you should have a lot of debts is because you don't have enough cash to fund the things that you want to get done. Whether it's purchasing a car, a house, a vacation, studies, whatever it is, such as there's a financial cost. You need to embrace with both hands, hug up tight, the concept of a budget. Because the budget is what will enable you to achieve, to get out of the hole that you're in and to move forward in a very positive way. And so, Charles, look at the American economy, Sir Charles. The American economy, we're talking about our deficit. We having a budget deficit of $2 or $3 billion, or $5 billion. So, Charles, the American economy, trillions of dollars.
Trillions.
Yes, and we still admire them, and we still want to mimic them. I mean, if you really want a definition of insanity, that is it right there. The performance of the American economy over its history tells a story. Yes, it's a deficit economy. All right, they're operating in a deficit context for the longest while. They get so accustomed to it, such as they become normal.
Yeah, that is they have normalized that. They will never be able to pay off that money.
All right, I do. They think they have any intention.
And who's responsible for getting whatever write-off when they print in their own money?
Well, Sir Charles, stranger things have happened, and it may very well happen to them. But let's forget about them for the moment. I'm just saying that when a budget, if at a family level you do a budget exercise, at the end of it, every member of the family should feel excited and inspired and motivated to do their part. You see, because it should not just be that the parents, of course, the parents may be the biggest financial input. But now, if there was ever a time when the children can make intangible inputs into the family budget, now is the time, because the children now have the technology at their fingertips in a way that very few adults have it. And that is a resource, Sir Charles. And I'm putting it outside there because I'm saying to families listening to me this morning, pay attention to the intangibles that are available to you right now, because your starting line is identifying and quantifying the resources that you have, because you can only work with what you have, and you want to engage the capacity for creativity and imagination. Those are resources that are resident within your family. You all need to sit down and talk, exchange ideas, listen to what everybody has to say, and don't dismiss the children because they are children. Don't feel that because they are children, they do not have intelligent input to make into the family planning. You see? And that is where family planning shouldn't be just about contraception, Sir Charles. It should be about conception. I'm sorry, but I'm very serious. All right, there is capacity within each family because, especially the young ones, I listen to some young children, Sir Charles, talk, and they're extremely intelligent and perceptive, and they don't have the baggage that adults have, and therefore, the scripture says that a little child shall lead them. That is not a chance comment, Sir Charles.
No,
That's
sir.
a very insightful and a very perceptive and a very important understanding for us to have. So I am saying here, I mean, I know we kind of heading for 11:45, and I really want to give people some opportunity to feedback. And I'm saying that the family needs to have a budget day, and the family and that budget day should be in August. But if August gone already, make sure it happens in September. Make sure that all members of the family are part of it, and let us be open to the ideas of our children, whether they are teenagers or preteen. All right, because they have a part to play, and they can be important components of a strategy to move the family forward. Such as, what's the benefits of that whole family planning at a budget level that will happen? That the children will have a greater sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
You see?
That's very important, and that is why you find that it's not a widespread habit because it's not known in certain circles. Now, some circles have it,
Yes.
but in a lot of circles, people don't know it because, for me personally, I mean, I didn't grow up in a space where we were involved in that kind of thing.
Neither did I.
I didn't know my mother and father. So both of them would sit down, and I see them and together looking frustrated and say, "Yeah, boy, things are looking too good this month." It never involved us. It's like,
right.
nah.
And you're only thinking about what you can't get, what you want that you can't get.
Yeah. So they never involved the children. So they would probably say, "Look, that is for you and me to work out. That is not for them."
Yes. That was that's how we grew up, and that's what we learned. All right. But I'm saying that there's need for this budgeting exercise at the individual level, at the family level. And you see, if it becomes a norm within the family, Sir Charles, it will have positive vibrations into the community. Yes? And you will find a healthier community life. And if it goes into the community, then it has further ripple effects into the national community, Sir Charles, that we can move forward as a nation. So I am hoping at a national level that at the end of this budget, all of us are excited at what has been proposed, at the goals that have been set, and that all of us, more importantly, feel that we have a part to play, and that we play that part to assist the nation in moving forward as a nation. So that when we achieve that, Sir Charles, our watchwords of discipline, production, and tolerance will really be watchwords.
Yeah.
Yeah?
True watchwords.
That is my, take for today. There's a lot of other stuff that I wanted to see, but I would really like to give a...
Yeah, but let's see if we can talk with some people before we go. So people, how we do it here, we give you the opportunity. You can call Garth now on Every Cent Counts, 2811-315. That's 2811-315. If you're outside of Trinidad and Tobago, you can add the 868 right? So we can regular call us. You can WhatsApp call us, but let's see if we can take a couple calls very quickly before we go. Caller, good morning to you.
Yeah. Hello.
Morning, Dean.
You mentioned something there. Investing in the kind of paraphrasing here. Investing in the most important assets or something like that, which to me is your human assets.
Correct.
Human asset, and hopefully, I would like to see that in the budget coming, that we invest in this thing. For years growing up, I've been, you hear people talking about productivity. You just talk about tolerance, productivity. the tolerance, the productivity. The tolerance is a psychological thing. How we have to work out our issues, work out the work out the financial issues. Because when you're in finance, it's bacchanal, right? You have to resolve it, mediate it, go to court. There's have all these things in the economy. And the stronger the human asset, a goal. That's what I was always saying. This thing about you gotta encourage this and then once you invest in people properly, everything else is just, icing on a cake. Because people have, you're creative, you're innovative, you have critical analysis, you know how to set it up and go through, and when you confront the issue, how to resolve those issues. And I would like to see that. But if you don't, you'll always be hitting some money, you're losing money, then you're, just hitting this, and hitting this, and you've been for 20, 30, 40 years, they have people talking about the productivity of our society. Chambers always talking about it. The skill level. I was talking to some people in the chambers there, and yes, the skill levels, they're having issues. You can have a degree, but there are certain things that not coming with the degree, which they expect, and that's the emotional intelligence, a lot of it. So, let's see. And I know people in this country are afraid of investing in human beings properly. Then. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
man.
right.
Thanks much, Dean.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the, human capital. There has been talk about human capital. And we need to find new ways of engaging human capital so that capital generates the energy. You see, so we come back to the energy and the fact that the energy is not just oil and gas. I do have a quarrel with oil and gas, but they are diminishing resources. So Charles, they are diminishing resources. Human energy is not a diminishing resource. It is just an underutilized resource. And it is limitless. And we have to find ways of enabling people to exercise that energy in creative and positive ways that will move our nation forward so that we enjoy a higher level, a higher quality of life. Such as I am less concerned about a higher standard of living than I am about a higher quality of life. And I like to make the differentiation. And I do not think that most Trinities understand that we have a pretty high quality of life. Of course, it is threatened now in a very real way by the amount of violence in the communities, the crime and the violence. And you see, I talk about crime and violence, and the two things kind of synonymous, but they're not the same. And we have to be sensitive to that. And I'm really hoping that my plea this morning, such as if anybody missed it, just in case the listeners missed it, my plea is engage some, and I'm speaking to myself as well, engage serious budget activity. All right, identify the resources that you have, but before doing that, decide where you want to go. All right, because people fall into the trap of looking at the financial resources, the tangible resources that they have, and when they look at it, they say, "Boy, them resources so small, I can't do anything. I can't get anywhere."
Yeah.
Which means to say that they're not looking at their intangible resources. And once you embrace the fact that you have skills, talents, expertise, all right, wisdom, relationships, all of these are part of your intangible resources, and we are wealthy in that, Sir Charles. We are a liming nation, and people normally talk about liming in a derogatory manner. But Sir Charles, our liming capacity is relationship building capacity, Sir Charles. Powerful relationship building capacity, and relationships. Whew, that's a wealth in itself. All right. That is a serious wealth that we have, an asset that we have as a nation, which instead of embracing it, we tend to, put it down, dismiss it, and try to avoid it. But it's there, such as liming in the blood. Liming is a part of the DNA of our training. All right. And liming is an environment, is an arena, it is a space where people can be themselves. And that is so critical, that you can find a place where you don't have to wear a mask.
I love that. A place where you don't have to wear a mask. Caller, good morning. Junior.
Well, it's not Junior.
Oh, Mr. Hotep. Sorry about that.
Hi, folks.
Sorry about that. I saw Junior was coming in also. Sorry.
Well, I wouldn't be too long. Hi, folks. Politicians already believe that they invested in the human capital. They think the education system,
yes,
the social programs, they think the intangibles are like investment in steel pan, Napa facilities, chutney, and these type of events. So if people want to encourage politicians to invest in intangibles in the human development, they really have to carry the dialogue into breaking down what specific activities that could unlock the potential of the people and the ways in which the politicians could invest in it to help harness the best of our people. So I think the dialogue needs to expand, because where it is now, I don't think it can move any politician to do anything more than they already do. And I'm going, just Junior to go.
Excellent comment. Excellent comment. I'll see if I can deal with that to some extent next week.
Yeah, because that interests me, because how do we go about doing that? And I am very interested in,
well, it kind of speaks to the whole structure and intent of the educational system.
Mm-hmm.
Shifting the focus away from getting a piece of paper to give you employment into helping people to realize their full potential as human beings. But we will talk about that.
Yeah, we really have to explore it, because it's a good idea. Those who are in charge is getting them to understand that, to move it forward.
Yep. So, Junior, he follow off?
And I follow off. But we have to leave it there for now. So let's leave it there for today.
All right. Well, Sir Charles, like I say, budget day is coming. And when I say that, I'm saying not just the national budget. I'm saying every family should be saying budget day is coming, our budget day. And they should begin to do the preparations for that. And the question of identifying some priorities for achievement by the family, for the family, through the family. You see how it come right? You see how it boil back down?
Right along.
That is where it's at. And I am hopeful that our broadcast this morning would stimulate a few people. Well, I hope it will stimulate many people to begin this exercise, because it is not a normal part of family life in Trinidad and Tobago, to the best of my knowledge and belief. So people can get me at 680-3185, 680-3185. WhatsApp. That's a WhatsApp contact. Don't call me. Send me a WhatsApp. Give me a name and an email address, and we can converse. Let me wish a blessed and a great week to all our listeners here and abroad, especially our people out there in the diaspora. Many blessings.
All right, so many blessings to you, God. Thank you very much for your insight, your knowledge, and for sharing with us this morning on your TT Radio. All right, enjoy it. All right, people, this has been Every Cent Counts. Don't go anywhere. We have our news coming up in a short.